The fungicide you bought at the garden center cost you 15 euro. It came with a warning label that you had to read twice, and that white powder reappeared on your leaves in less than a week. This is what they never told you in the chemical products aisle. There is a very simple brown bottle in your bathroom cabinet right now. 3% hydrogen peroxide, the same one you use to clean a scraped knee, and it costs around 1 euro in any discount store. In a greenhouse trial published on powdery mildew, a diluted spray of this product reduced the severity of the disease from more than 90% of the leaf surface to around 12%. That is the same molecule that your own plants already manufacture inside their cells to defend themselves. We are going to see that exact spray and the sick plant it rescues a little later. 1 euro versus 15 euro. 12% versus 90%. Stay with me because this is going to change the way you care for your garden. I am going to teach you 9 tricks, 9 specific and proven ways to use a cheap bottle of hydrogen peroxide to save a plant that is sick, drowning, or already half dead. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what problem each trick solves, how much to mix with teaspoon precision, and exactly when to step back and not touch the bottle at all, because that last trick matters as much as the other 8. Before we start, do one thing for me. Leave me a note in the comments telling me which country or city you are watching from, and if you grow plants mainly indoors, outdoors, or both. Where you live changes everything. Long, cold winters, heat, humidity, or dry air determine which of these tricks you will turn to most. As a fundamental rule that I will repeat to keep your plants safe, all the mixtures in this video start from standard 3% hydrogen peroxide, the kind you find in any pharmacy or supermarket, not the industrial type. Let's begin with trick number 1, the treatment against fungus gnats. Do you know these insects well? Those tiny black flies that rise in a cloud every time you water and flutter around your windows and your favorite plants. They are not just annoying. A single female lays up to 200 spores or eggs in the moist top layer of the soil, and in that first inch, the larvae silently chew on the fine root hairs of the plant. That is why a healthy plant suddenly starts to decline, for no obvious reason. The mechanism is beautifully simple. Hydrogen peroxide, chemically H2O2, is just water with an extra, weakly attached oxygen atom. The moment it touches the moist soil, that extra atom breaks off, which is the bubbling you see. For the gnat larva, that sudden burst of oxygen is an oxidative shock that destroys it on contact. Various university extensions recommend mixing 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide with 4 parts water and pouring it over the soil, noting that the mixture bubbles while attacking the larvae. Let the top inch of the soil dry out completely first, because the larvae live up there and a dry surface forces them down to meet the treatment. Then, mix 1 cup of hydrogen peroxide into 4 cups of water. Pour it slowly over the entire surface of the pot until you see it coming out of the drainage holes at the bottom. It will foam, and that foam means it is working. Wait 7 to 10 days and do it one more time to catch the next batch that has hatched, because their life cycle works in waves. Combine it with some yellow sticky traps to catch the adults, and you will break the cycle forever. Additionally, this same watering flushes out accumulated salts from old fertilizers that burn the roots from below. You kill the gnats and clean the soil in a single watering. If you are learning something useful and have not subscribed yet, go ahead and do it right now. The algorithm will not show you my videos unless it sees you as a regular follower. One tap fixes it, and the next time I post something that saves your plant or saves you money, you will actually see it. Trick number 2 is sterilizing your pots, trays, and tools before planting anything in them. Most problems in a garden do not start in the plant, but in a dirty pot. Fungal spores and bacteria from last year cling to the inside of the container all winter, waiting in the dry soil for something young and vulnerable to be planted so they can attack. The mechanism here is the same oxidation, but directed against the surface instead of the soil. Reactive oxygen destroys the cell walls of those residual spores, and in a few minutes decomposes into nothing more than water and oxygen without leaving any toxic film. Compare that to the bleach that so many people use, which leaves vapors that irritate the eyes and a residue that you have to rinse over and over again before it is safe to plant. Experts recommend hydrogen peroxide exactly for this. Remove the old soil, scrub the pots with warm, soapy water to remove encrusted remains, and then spray every surface inside and out with 3% hydrogen peroxide directly from the bottle until it drips. Let it act for 10 to 20 minutes so it has time to work. Rinse, let dry, and you can now plant. There are no dangerous vapors if it splashes on your skin or your clothes, and it is totally safe to do in the kitchen sink. You can reuse the trays from last spring without dragging last year's diseases into your new seedlings. Trick number 3 is the seed soak to wake up the most rebellious ones. This turns hydrogen peroxide into a germination catalyst. Many seeds, especially those with hard shells, simply refuse to sprout on time, and you are left staring at an empty tray wondering what went wrong. Hydrogen peroxide changes that because it does two things at once. It softens that hard outer layer so that water and oxygen can finally reach the internal embryo, and it breaks down abscisic acid, the hormone that keeps the seed locked in its dormant state. You remove the lock, and the seed receives the signal to start. Scientists from the United States Agricultural Research Service demonstrated in a 2022 study that soaking seeds in a hydrogen peroxide solution improved germination by more than 70% compared to plain water. Similar advances have been documented in barley, corn, wheat, peas, and sunflowers. Mix 1 teaspoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide in a cup of water. Drop your seeds in and let them soak for about 2 hours or overnight for those with really hard shells, like sweet peas or parsley, which are famous for taking their time. Then plant as usual. You will get a faster sprout, stronger initial seedlings, and a more uniform tray with many fewer empty cells. Trick number 4 is stopping damping off before it destroys an entire tray of seedlings overnight. If you have ever sown seeds indoors, you may have experienced this nightmare. The seedlings sprout green and full of hope. They grow a couple of centimeters, and one morning they have all fallen at ground level, strangled and rotten, as if something had cut them during the night. That something is a group of fungi and water molds that thrive in fresh, moist, and stagnant substrates. Hydrogen peroxide destroys these pathogens on the surface where they attack, and the released oxygen makes the top layer of the soil a much less welcoming place for them. The treatment must be gentle, because seedlings are fragile. Mix 1 tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide in 2 cups of water and lightly spray the surface of the substrate. Then do the 3 things that matter as much or more. Place a small fan nearby to circulate the air. Water from below so the surface stays drier, and stop overwatering, which is the real invitation this fungus is waiting for. This allows you to get ahead of the season without losing an entire tray on a bad morning. I would like to know if you have ever watered a plant so much that you ended up wilting it from too much love. Tell me in the comments which plant it was and how you realized you were drowning it. The next 3 tricks are designed exactly for that situation. Trick number 5 is the spray against powdery mildew that we mentioned at the beginning, the same one that reduced the severity of the fungus from 90% to 12% in trials. Powdery mildew is that ghostly white powder that spreads across your zucchinis, roses, and plants on the most humid days of summer. It is a fungus that builds a network of fine threads on the leaf surface and launches spores by the thousands. When you spray diluted hydrogen peroxide directly on it, the oxidative burst breaks those fragile fungal threads and spores on contact, drying them out and stopping their reproduction. Your plants already manufacture hydrogen peroxide inside their own tissues. Research confirms that they use it as an internal alarm signal to coordinate their defenses against stress and even to guide the growth of their roots. Therefore, when you apply it, you are not introducing a foreign chemical, but reinforcing a defense whose language the plant already speaks. Mix 1 tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide in 4 liters of water. Spray both sides of the leaves, the top and the underside, because the fungus hides underneath where you usually forget to look. It is essential that you spray early in the morning or at sunset, never in the full midday sun, because sunlight plus hydrogen peroxide on a wet leaf can burn the tender shoots you are trying to save. Repeat once a week, as long as you see the fungus, and give your plants space to breathe, because air circulation is half the battle. As an added benefit, this same spray affects aphids and spider mite eggs on contact, so you treat the fungus and discourage soft-bodied pests at the same time. Trick number 6 is the rescue soak against root rot for that plant you were one day away from throwing in the trash. Root rot almost always starts the same way. Too much watering, lack of drainage, and the soil runs out of air and becomes waterlogged. In that suffocating environment, soil fungi activate and turn healthy white roots into a brown, mushy mass, while above the plant turns yellow and wilts. When hydrogen peroxide decomposes in the root zone, it eliminates those fungi and at the same time floods the compacted soil with oxygen, giving any remaining healthy roots a chance to breathe and recover. Take the plant out of its pot, rinse the roots gently under the tap, and cut every soft brown root with clean scissors, keeping only the firm and light ones. Mix 3% peroxide with 2 parts water to obtain a gentle 1% solution, and submerge those clean roots for 15 or 20 minutes, no more. Then transplant it into new, dry substrate in a clean pot that has good drainage holes. Hydrogen peroxide rescues the plant today, but the only permanent cure is watering correctly from now on. Trick number 7 is returning oxygen to soil that has become compacted and waterlogged. Sometimes a plant is not yet infected. It is just drowning because the substrate has caked together. Water stays on the surface instead of filtering, the roots suffocate, and the leaves fall off. That airless soil is the exact condition that rot is waiting to take advantage of. A light watering with hydrogen peroxide relieves this by releasing oxygen into the root zone and breaking up that stagnant layer. Mix 1 tablespoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide in a cup of water and pour it slowly over the soil of a pot that has already drained the excess. Then, let the plant dry out well before watering again. This does not replace fixing the drainage permanently. If the pot has no holes or the substrate is too heavy, this will only buy you time. But sometimes time is exactly what a struggling plant needs to pull through. Think of a person whose crops or plants always seem to be suffering and send them this video. That link could save the next plant they were about to give up on. Trick number 8 is for your cuttings and plants in water. It is increasingly common to root cuttings in jars on the window or grow herbs in small hydroponic systems. The enemy in those cases is warm, stagnant water without oxygen, which is the perfect breeding ground for fungi, algae, and that slimy layer that coats the roots and the glass. When you add a small amount of hydrogen peroxide, its decomposition raises the dissolved oxygen in the water and suppresses those pathogens and the slime. For a propagation jar, approximately 1 teaspoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide per liter of water is enough. For a small hydroponic reservoir, use 1 to 3 milliliters of 3% hydrogen peroxide for every 4 liters of water. Keep the water fresh and out of direct light, and change it regularly to keep it clean and clear. Go carefully with the amounts, because a little does the job, but too much will stress the roots you are trying to develop. Which leads us to trick number 9, knowing when to leave the bottle in the cabinet. Hydrogen peroxide does not distinguish between good and bad. It is not selective. It destroys the beneficial bacteria and mycorrhizal fungi that associate with your plant's roots, along with the pathogens you are trying to eliminate. If you have fish in a system, a strong dose can also harm them. It cannot fix chronic overwatering or poor drainage, which are the true cause of most sick plants. Hydrogen peroxide treats the symptom while you correct the cause. A mixture that is too strong will burn the roots and leaves, doing the opposite of what you were looking for. Never use high-concentration hydrogen peroxide undiluted, as it causes severe chemical burns. Never mix it with bleach or vinegar in the same container, because you would form a much more aggressive acid than intended. Always keep the dilution at 3% strength or less. If you use biological soil products or mycorrhizal inoculants, wait at least 7 days after using hydrogen peroxide before applying them so as not to eliminate what you just added. Correct the watering first. That discipline is exactly what makes the other 8 tricks work as they should. Putting it all together, you realize that this is a single bottle, doing 3 tasks throughout the life of a plant. First, it protects before problems start by sterilizing tools, soaking seeds, and protecting seedlings. Second, it treats when the problem is already visible, controlling gnats in the soil, mildew on the leaves, and rot in the roots. Third, it revives when the plant seems lost, returning oxygen to drowned soil and keeping water clean for your cuttings. You have spent time learning about your plants, you have seen the seasons change, and you have recovered more than one plant from the brink of the abyss. You have the right to rescue a struggling plant without needing to fill a shelf with expensive chemicals full of warning labels. Your plants do not need a solution from a chemical corporation. They need oxygen, a clean container, and the knowledge you now have with you. Subscribe to keep receiving these simple, honest, and economical solutions that really work. Tell me in the comments which of these 9 tricks you are going to try first, and what plant you are trying to save right now on your windowsill. Share this information with that friend who needs it, and we will see you in the next video to keep cultivating life. If this story changed the way you look at the simple brown bottle in your cabinet, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the gardening secrets that big corporations try to bury. Let's grow the future together. The next treasure of knowledge will be opened soon.